Hamas number 2 killed in Israeli assassination. Japan earthquake death toll rises to 55. You're watching World Today, I'm Brendan Lepore. Israel's war against Hamas reached Lebanon yesterday, where an Israeli strike killed Hamas's deputy leader. A high-level security official said Saleh al-Aruri was killed, along with his bodyguards, in the strike by Israel. Israel has previously announced the killing in Gaza of Hamas commanders and officials during the war. But Aruri is the most high-profile figure to be killed, and his death came in the first strike on the Lebanese capital since hostilities began. Israeli army spokesman Daniel Hagari did not directly comment on Aruri's killing, but said the military is highly prepared for any scenario in its aftermath. Lebanese state media reported the strike hit a Hamas office in Beirut's southern suburbs, a stronghold of Lebanon's Iran-backed Hezbollah movement, a Hamas ally. Hamas TV said Israel had killed Aruri in Lebanon, and Lebanese media said a total of 7 people were killed in the attack by an Israeli drone. The strike adds to widespread regional fears that the nearly 3-month-old Israeli-Hamas war could become a wide conflagration. Hamas said the killing will not lead to its defeat, while Hezbollah vowed Aruri's death will not go unpunished. Meanwhile, Lebanon's Prime Minister Najib Mikati condemned the killing and said it aims to draw Lebanon further into the Israel-Hamas war. French President Emmanuel Macron called on Israel to avoid escalation, particularly in Lebanon, following a strike in Beirut attributed to Israel that killed Hamas's deputy leader. Macron, who spoke by telephone with Israeli minister and war cabinet member Benny Gantz, said it was essential to avoid any escalatory attitude, particularly in Lebanon, and that France would continue to pass on these messages to all players directly or indirectly involved in the area. Israel regularly carries out strikes against the Hamas-allied Hezbollah movement along its shared border with Lebanon, but Aruri's killing was the first time since the start of the war in Gaza that it has targeted the Lebanese capital. In his conversation with Gantz, Macron reiterated his call for a, quote, lasting ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. He also expressed again his deepest concern at the mounting civilian death toll in Gaza, as well as a humanitarian crisis unfolding inside the Palestinian territory, while at the same time reaffirming France's commitment to the security of Israel. Israel bombardment and ground offensive in Gaza has killed at least 22,185 people, mostly women and children. Turkey yesterday detained 33 people suspected of spying for Israel's Mossad intelligence service, without specifying the nationalities of those detained. State-run Anadolu news agencies reported that the suspects were rounded up in raids across 8 provinces around Istanbul, adding that their mission included conducting abductions and carrying out reconnaissance work. The report said Turkish security services were still looking for 13 more suspects accused of engaging international espionage on Israel's behalf. Relations between Turkey and Israel deteriorated sharply following the outbreak of the Israel-Hamas war. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has turned into one of the world's harshest critics of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, whom he compared to Adolf Hitler last week. Erdogan has recalled Ankara's envoy to Tel Aviv and demanded that Israeli commanders and political leaders be put on trial for war crimes at the International Criminal Court in The Hague. The Gaza war ended a gradual improvement in Turkish-Israeli relations, which were effectively frozen for most of the past decade. And in other news, Japanese rescuers scrambled to search for survivors today as authorities warned of landslides and heavy rain after a powerful earthquake that killed at least 55 people. The 7.5 magnitude quake on 1st of January that rattled Ishikawa Prefecture on the main island of Honshu triggered tsunami waves more than a meter high, sparked a major fire and tore apart roads. The Noto Peninsula of the prefecture was mostly severely hit, with several hundred buildings ravaged by fire and houses flattened. The regional government announced late Tuesday that 55 people had been confirmed dead and 22 severely injured. But the toll was expected to climb as rescuers battle aftershocks and poor weather to comb through rubble. They added that more than 31,800 people were in shelters. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida's government was due to hold a meeting of an emergency task force today to discuss responses. Kishida reiterated last night that it's a race against time, given how many people have been caught in the collapsed buildings. The operation was given extra urgency as the Japan Meteorological Agency, JMA, issued a heavy rain warning for Noto. The country is haunted by a massive 9.0 magnitude undersea quake off northeastern Japan in 2011, which triggered a tsunami that left around 18,500 people dead or missing. It also swamped the Fukushima atomic plant, causing one of the world's worst nuclear disasters. Dozens of cars were destroyed and several dealerships damaged in massive Russian airstrike on Kyiv on Tuesday. The explosion blew open windows in apartment buildings situated several blocks away. According to a worker from one of the dealerships, 5 cars inside the building and around 15 on the forecourt were damaged. Russia fired scores of missiles and drones at the Ukrainian capital Kyiv and the northeastern city of Kharkiv, killing at least 5 civilians, wounding dozens and causing widespread damage. The third successive day of airstrikes on Ukraine followed a warning by President Vladimir Putin and the Ukrainian air attack on the Russian city of Belgorod, which Moscow said killed 25 civilians, would not go unpunished. Russia stepped up its missile and drone attacks on Ukraine on 29 December, when it launched its largest air attack of the war, killing at least 39 people. Its president, Vladimir Putin, said that the course of the war in Ukraine was changing in Russia's favor, and that Moscow hoped to end the conflict, but only on its own terms. Putin's traditional New Year address delivered on Sunday made only a passing reference to the war in Ukraine, a sharp contrast to last year's speech. Fire crews fought in vain to contain the blaze which completely destroyed a Japan Airlines flight at Tokyo's Haneda Airport on Tuesday. All 379 people aboard the passenger jet escaped after it caught fire following a collision on the ground with a Coast Guard plane in which 5 of the 6 people on board were killed. The fire, captured by Japan's Nippon TV, was not extinguished until shortly after midnight, after burning for more than 6 hours. A senior Japanese airline official said communications between the control tower and planes involved in the crash are being investigated. Japanese airline managing executive officer Noriyuki Aoki told the press conference that the passenger plane was landing and officials were checking whether permission to land had been given by the air traffic controllers. Japan's Transport Minister Tetsuo Saito said the cause of the accident was unclear and the Japan Transport Safety Board, police and other departments would continue to investigate. The Coast Guard said the collision involved one of its planes that was headed to Niigata Airport on Japan's west coast to deliver aid to those caught up in a powerful earthquake that struck on New Year's Day. South Korean police on Tuesday identified a 67-year-old man as suspect who stabbed the opposition leader Lee Jae-myung. However, his motive is unknown. A Busan police official, Son Je-han, told the news briefing the assailant was born in 1957 and used an 18-centimeter knife bought online. He did not provide more details on the suspect and said the motive was being investigated. Lee was walking in a crowd of journalists after visiting the site of a new airport when a man pushed through and lunged at him, striking him in the neck. Local media reported the police will seek the charge of attempted murder against the assailant. Lee has received an emergency treatment at a hospital in Busan and transferred to a hospital in Seoul. A former governor of Gyeonggi province, Lee narrowly lost to Conservative Yoon, a former chief prosecutor in the 2022 presidential election. He has led the main opposition party since August 2022. Lee is currently on trial for alleged bribery stemming from a development project when he was mayor of Seongnam near Seoul. He has denied any wrongdoing. South Korea's next parliamentary elections are slated for April. To come, Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai pleads not guilty in national trial. Stay with us. Heavy rains triggered flash flooding across parts of Australia's east on Tuesday as an intense weather system flooded roads, cut off towns and damaged properties, with authorities urging residents in low-lying areas to consider moving to higher ground. The northeastern New South Wales and southeastern Queensland regions were pounded by a wild weather system overnight, with several towns taking roughly a month's rainfall over 24 hours to Monday morning. Authorities have established evacuation centres at Nerang, Coomera and Tambourine Mountain. Reports indicate that at least 11,000 people are without power, mainly in southeastern Queensland. It could take several days before crews fully restore power. More heavy rain was forecast on Tuesday morning, with totals set to exceed 250 millimetres more than the January average. Experts say climate change has amplified Australia's weather extremes in recent years. The El Niño weather phenomenon, which can provoke wildfires, cyclones and prolonged drought, is also affecting the country during its December to February summer. Hong Kong pro-democracy tycoon Jimmy Lai pleaded not guilty on Tuesday to all charges against him in a high-profile national security trial that could see the city's leading critic of the Chinese Communist Party jailed for life. Lai faces 2 counts of conspiracy to collude with foreign forces, including calling for sanctions against Hong Kong and Chinese officials under a China-imposed national security law. Lai, aged 76, the founder of now-shuttered pro-democracy newspaper Apple Daily, is also charged with conspiracy to publish seditious publications under a colonial-era sedition law. Both the United States and Britain have called for Lai's immediate release, saying the trial is politically motivated. However, Hong Kong authorities dispute claims that the tycoon won't enjoy a fair trial, saying all are equal before the law, and that the national security law has brought stability to Hong Kong after mass protests in 2019. Lai was arrested on 3rd December 2020 for fraud related to the lease of the building that houses his newspaper. His bail was denied and he was remanded to Lai Chi Kok prison. The arrest of Lai followed a day after the sentencing of prominent pro-democracy activist Joshua Wong. A sign critics say that Beijing's crackdown on Hong Kong has intensified. Somalia said on Tuesday that a pact, its breakaway region of Somaliland, has signed with Ethiopia, allowing it to use the Red Sea port of Berbera, had no legal force and threatened regional stability. Somalia also summoned its ambassador to Ethiopia for deliberations over the port agreement, signed by Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and the president of the self-declared Republic of Somaliland, Musa Bihi Abdi, on Monday. The agreement would allow landlocked Ethiopia, which relies on neighboring Djibouti for most of its maritime trade, to set up commercial operations at a leased military base in Berbera. It also included provision for recognizing Somaliland as an independent nation in due course. Somalia's cabinet said in a statement after an emergency meeting on Tuesday that the deal between Ethiopia and Somaliland endangered stability and peace in the region. Bilin Sium, spokesperson at Abiy's office, Meles Alem, spokesperson at Ethiopia's Foreign Affairs Ministry, and Ligisi Tulu, the Ethiopian government spokesperson, did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Somaliland has not gained widespread international recognition, despite declaring autonomy from Somalia in 1991. Somalia says Somaliland is part of its territory. Spanish Coast Guards rescued 153 migrants off the coast of Gran Canaria in the Atlantic Ocean on Tuesday. Spanish Coast Guard said on their X account, formerly Twitter, that they towed the wooden boat the migrants were traveling in to Arginahin port. Hundreds of migrants have been rescued off the Canary Islands in the first 2 days of the year, continuing a trend that has caused strain on Spain's archipelago small islands, which lies around 100 kilometers off Africa's west coast. More than 37,000 migrants have reached the Canary Island from West Africa on a fragile boat by 15 December. According to Interior Ministry data, this was 140% more than the same period of 2022. The Red Cross said on Saturday almost 40,000 migrants reached the Spanish islands in 2023. The voyage from West Africa to the Canary Islands is among the most dangerous routes for migrants. They usually sail in dugout fishing boats that are easily tossed by powerful Atlantic currents. The archipelago's 7 islands have become the main destination for migrants from Senegal and other African countries trying to reach Spain. Others seek to cross the Mediterranean to the Spanish mainland. PSG keeps close tabs on transfer window as Mbappe's future set to make waves. That and more next in sports. Carlo Ancelotti extended his contract with Real Madrid to June 2026 on Friday, which would rule him out of becoming Brazil's national coach. Real Madrid and Carlo Ancelotti have reached an agreement on the extension of his contract till 30th June 2026. It had been reported in July this year that 64-year-old Ancelotti would become the first foreigner to coach Brazil in almost 60 years once he saw out his present Real contract next year. Brazil Football Confederation has named Fernando Diniz as the temporary manager before they anticipated Ancelotti taking control for the 2024 Copa America. Ronaldo Rodriguez, the then president of the CBF, held months of negotiations with Ancelotti, who had previously stated the Real job would be his last in football. However, it appeared one of the most glamorous and challenging jobs in football has brought a change of mind. Compared to Brazil, Real's results this season have been largely positive as they top La Liga and eased into the Champions League knockout rounds with 6 wins from 6 matches. Ancelotti is regarded as one of the greatest coaches of all time. He has won the Champions League 4 times, twice with AC Milan and twice with Real Madrid. He has won domestic league titles with Real and Milan, in England with Chelsea, in Germany with Bayern Munich, and in France with Paris Saint-Germain. The future of Kylian Mbappe and his protracted courtship by Real Madrid is expected to be the key theme of the transfer window that opens in Europe on Monday. Arsenal's search for a proven goalscorer to spearhead their challenge for a first Premier League title since 2004 could also loom large. Manchester City, meanwhile, are widely expected to let Calvin Phillips leave the club, ending a disappointing stay for the former Leeds midfielder, who has failed to make his mark at the world champions. Much attention, though, will again focus on Mbappe, Paris Saint-Germain's lethal finisher and the man who a year ago scored a hat-trick for France in the World Cup final only to finish on the losing side. Real Madrid are again the main suitor for the 25-year-old whose contract at PSG expires in June. The big question remains whether, if the 14-time European champions finally get a commitment from the player they have been pursuing for years. It is far from certain, though, as Mbappe triggers an extraordinary reaction in France, illustrated when President Emmanuel Macron intervened to persuade him to stay at PSG in June 2022, when a move to Real seemed almost cut and dried. Real are not sitting on their hands, though. Endrick, the latest Brazilian starlet, will join the club from Palmeiras when he turns 18 in July 2024 for a fee reported to be €72 million. In women's football, Spanish World Cup winning star Jenny Hermoso told a judge on Tuesday that the kiss forced on her by disgraced former Spanish football chief Luis Rubiales was, quote, a no-point consensual. After arriving at the Audiencia Nacional in Madrid, the 33-year-old went to testify before Judge Francisco de Jorge, who is investigating Rubiales on allegations of sexual assault and coercion. During the incident on 20th August last year, the then head of Spain's RFEF Football Federation held their head in both hands and forcibly kissed her on the lips after Spain won the World Cup in Australia. He has said the act was a consensual peck, but Hermoso has insisted it was not. She filed a lawsuit against him in September and told the judge she had come under pressure to defend Rubiales both on the flight back from Australia and on a subsequent team holiday to Ibiza in the Balearic Islands. Under Spanish law, a non-consensual kiss can be considered sexual assault, a criminal category that groups all types of sexual violence. Penalties for such a kiss range from a fine to 4 years in prison. The incident provoked widespread outrage and prompted his suspension by World Football Governing Body, FIFA. And in tennis, Rafael Nadal marked his singles comeback after being out-injured for nearly a year with a convincing 7-5, 6-1 victory over Austrian former world number 3 Dominic Thiem in the Brisbane International first round yesterday. The 22 times Grand Slam champion had arthroscopic surgery last June after injuring his left hip flexor during his second round defeat by Mackenzie McDonald at the Australian Open in early 2023. Nadal returned to competitive tennis in the new season on Sunday and crashed to a doubles defeat while partnering retired veteran Mark Lopez, but showed glimpses of his top form ahead of the 14 to 28 January Melbourne Park Major. The 37-year-old looked razor-sharp again during his latest meeting with qualifier Thiem in a rematch of their 2018 and 2019 French Open finals, which he won, as he ramped up the pressure and claimed the opening set with a tiebreak. Roared on by fans inside a heavy-packed Rafter arena, Nadal grabbed an early break in the second set with a superb backhand pass and barely looked back as he racked up the 5-1 lead before closing out the match on serve. Nadal's 1,069th men's tour-level victory meant he surpassed Ivan Lendl to sit fourth in the all-time list. And over in Perth, Novak Djokovic received treatment for a wrist issue during his 6-1, 6-7, 6-1 win over Jiří Lehečka at the United Cup as Serbia squeezed past the Czech Republic 2-1 to reach the quarterfinals. Over in Sydney, Croatia beat the Netherlands 2-1 in their United Cup Group F tie, but Norway edged them to top the group with a better games winning percentage and advanced to the quarterfinals. Croatia needed a 3-love result or a 2-1 win with a 5-2 set score to finish at the top. But after Borna Coric and Dona Vekic won their singles rubbers, the mixed doubles match was clinched by the Dutch duo of Demi Schuurs and Wesley Koolhof. Croatia can still advance as one of the best second-placed teams. And back to football, Premier League legend Wayne Rooney has been dismissed as the manager of Birmingham City after less than 3 months in the role. The dismissal was made after a winless run left the second-tier championship club hovering above the relegation zone. Rooney was appointed Birmingham manager in October when the club was 6th in the table, but they have since fallen to 20th place, 6 points above the relegation zone. After Rooney took charge, the club lost 9 of their 15 matches, winning only 2. They have been winless in their last 5 outings. Rooney took over from John Eustace after resigning as coach of Major League Soccer MLS club DC United, signing a 3.5-year contract. In a statement, Rooney conveyed his gratitude to the club's management team, but he said he does not believe 13 weeks was sufficient to oversee the changes that were needed, citing that time is the most precious commodity a manager requires. The club said its professional development coach, Steve Spooner, will take charge on an interim basis. Prior to his stint with DC United, Rooney had a 17-month spell in charge of Derby County, where his team collected 55 points, enough for survival, but were relegated to the third tier after a points deduction amid financial trouble.
Sabah dan Sarawak memang diberikan perhatian kerana kita ketinggalan dalam melaksanakan perjanjian Malaysia 1963. Maka tahun depan peruntukan persekutuan untuk pembangunan Sarawak meningkat kepada 5.8 bilion ringgit. Manakala untuk Sabah meningkat kepada 6.6 bilion ringgit. Kerajaan juga telah menurunkan kuasa pelaksanaan projek pembangunan di bawah 50 juta ringgit kepada agensi teknikal. Kita telah meningkatkan pemberian khas interim untuk Sarawak dan Sabah 300 juta ringgit ketimbang 16 juta ringgit bagi Sarawak yang diputuskan yang tidak dikaji semula sejak 1969.
And that's it on Bold today. In our top story, Hamas number 2 killed in Israeli assassination. Till then, our brother Paul, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thanks for tuning in. Take care.